Call to order, Buhl City Council meeting, Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. Mr. Jeffries, will you please take the roll?
Councillor Hadrava. Here. Councillor Loeffler is absent. Councillor Keelig. Here. Councillor Towner.
Here.
Mayor Carter.
Here.
Quorum is present and we may conduct business.
Thank you, sir. All rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Mr. Jeffries, do we have any changes to the agenda as presented?
We do, Mayor Carter. We have two items. One is completion of an existing item, and one will be a new item we'd like to take up under A1 of item 8, the business. This will be item A1, and it will be regarding procuring some equipment for the fire department. The other item is a cleanup of some older business, which I'd kind of like to do now if we could. And that is, last meeting, we had set forth the summer help hiring and workability practices. And we said that repeat workers, if they had worked with us before, would have a higher rate of pay. And we have not established that yet. So the regular rate of pay for our summer help is $10.85 an hour. And I'd like you all to consider what the returning worker rate of pay would be for this year. And if we could do that now, we will just need a simple motion that's saying how much it'll be. And if it passes, then I'll incorporate that into the old business item.
That's the appropriate place to do that, is right now?
That's fine. If you're gonna, you should add it to the agenda though first.
And so two items to add to the agenda. Item 1 to be to set the rate of pay for summer help if they are returning and have worked as summer helpers before in the city of Buhl. And number 2, for the acquisition of some communications equipment for the fire department, which we will take up under item 8A1.
Excellent. So,
There's one more. Did we finish with the audit committee of how we were gonna do that? Weren't we gonna add that to this agenda?
We can also do that. Let's add that as 8A2. I have that in part of my comments because of you were going to bring back your thoughts on how the details of that would be set forth.
okay, so right away we'll take care of the wages for summer help.
First, we need to...
Once we get to business, just going over the changes, just to make sure I have it correct. The wages for summer help, returning summer help, and then under A1 will be the consideration of approving purchase for fire department communications equipment.
Yes.
And then AA2 will be discussion, possibly a motion on the formation of the audit committee.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, that'll work.
Okay, council, with those changes to the agenda, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Anything further? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda is approved. As far as the wages for summer help, should we do that under business, or do you want to take care of that right away?
Whatever your pleasure is, sir.
What would be appropriate?
I think if you did A3, it'd just be consistent with you did
Okay.
prior.
Then we will do that.
All right, thank you. Agenda is approved. Moving on to report from department heads. Sorry.
Mayor Carter, thank you. First, I'd like to call on Engineer John Jamnick from JPJ Engineering.
Thank you. A couple updates on the project on Damien's addition. We have a completion date of June 20th. They're scheduled to put the curb and gutter in beginning on Monday, the 17th. They're probably not gonna meet the completion date, and we asked them for an updated date. We didn't get one. Big reason is they lost 11 working days of curb and gutter, nice laid concrete. That's one. The big issue with the delay, but they're scheduled for Monday. And then the solid bituminous will schedule their paving right after that, so. I just want to give you an update, that's what we know on with that project. And the other item is last week Tony and I and Tom Alverson from Casper Construction walked and went through the old projects punch list and complete. And I think we got 2 items or 3 items left to go on it. The sod by State and Mercer intersection where that hydrant is, it's gotta be resodded. They tried to seed it, that's not working. The patching of the street Grant Location Road down the hill there.
Where the crack is?
They're doing that, probably sealing that. Look, talking to everybody and discussing it. We're gonna put a seal inside that crack so it's gonna expand and seal. It should contract over the years or be less of a problem, so.
John, I have a question with that. Does that, so they're gonna put a seal in there. If next year that opens up and fails and there's issues with it, is there some kind of warranty that comes along with it or guarantee that?
Well, no, I don't know. We're just gonna, their argument was, well, there was a differential settlement in the road. That's what happened. And I don't know if I agree with them, but.
Well, who did the dirt work under it? Who did the dirt work under it?
Well, it was Casper did the water line on one side of the road and replaced that road. So that's what they're saying, there's settlement, but I think putting a sealant in there, it's just something that, well, probably have to be maintained over a period of time. And
Probably doing maintenance on it.
We discussed.
John, can I ask a couple things of you first and add something for clarification since we're on the items?
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay, let's talk about Grant Location Road. My understanding is that when we talk about the differential settlement, the design and the sub-base was different from one end of the road than the other end of the road where the water line went. So is that right? So it wasn't the whole road that was re-engineered
Just the
for
north
the
half of
sub-base?
the road was rebuilt.
That's right, okay.
So,
And then let's go back a step because I've got some info possibly that just came in. This is regarding the schedule at Damien. And I think this came in at like 6:23 to us. Yes, the Monday, curb and gutter going in, right? And after that gets done, it is highly, 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 highly recommended to let that curb and gutter sit for at least a week to let the green concrete cure out to a satisfactory strength to hold the paving. On the next week, the 24th or the 28th, the blue topping will go down. And then right here, I just got this, July 1st to July 3rd is when the paving contractor can mobilize. And that'll be for Damien, but that would also be for Woodbridge, Whiteside, Jefferson, et cetera, et cetera. So, let me just say, there were 13 to 15 rain days in May. So this is 100% the reason that this is where it's at. And the early part of June hasn't been that good to us either, has it? But anyway, John, so that just came
I
through.
asked for a date. I just knew the curb and gutter was on the 17th.
Okay.
We'll have to decide, they had a completion date of June 20th.
Yeah.
That's the schedule to complete it, what it means by it. I'm not recommending we do a time extension, but, at least we got a schedule. And you have to get it done in June.
Weather permitting.
Yeah.
John, did you want to talk about the business park work on the south
Was
side?
there any other questions? I will, Tony, but was
Okay.
there any other questions on the punch list items?
What about the fix in front of the curling club doors?
Yeah, that's part of what we talked about, putting a bentonite seal there. We thought that a bituminous curb wouldn't really work right now, so we're gonna seal that crack or avoid it. Or, you know, and there might be some long-term options that we should talk about with the building. Should we put a gutter system across the front? That would help quite a bit.
Didn't it have a blacktop curb previously?
No.
No?
I think it had a little lip, but,
I think so.
and I don't know how a curb with that snow that comes off the roof would work. I mean, a gutter, I don't know how that would work with that roof, with how much snow we get up there. If that would even stay up when that snow comes down.
Have you tried that before, or what, with the gutter? Yeah, water just drips straight down there, that's what we were looking at, could we, maybe on the north side of the building?
It wasn't
Look at
always
it.
just the roof either, it was the melt off from the snow melt too that was
The runoff.
coming in, the runoff. That
Didn't
was
the pa-
coming in.
Didn't the pavement previously come up the metal on the wall?
A little bit, you could
I think it
see
did, I
signs
think it
of
had that little bit of a, I wouldn't call
It
it a
was
curb.
sealed there a little bit, yeah. It seemed to work pretty good, because usually
did.
we have a water problem until the project occurred, so. Trying to seal it up, I think. But putting a curb in there, you know, just didn't think there's other solutions with sealing material or something like that that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they could seal that, that'd be 100 times better than what it
Than
is.
what it was, yeah.
See, that's on the punch list. That was, and then there's this alley, it's called Alley B, south of Woodridge. There's a drainage problem, so the contractor's gonna come in and he's gonna mill that alley out so it drains over to, is it Seville or France? Seville, get that water to drain away in that area. That was one of the bigger punch list items that we had on the list, so. That's the one drain. We met with the residents out there when we did our walkthrough, so got their point of view and on the same issue. It's been such a flat alley, you know, and I think they had concrete at one time and then it was bituminous and anyways, they're gonna come in and mill it down and try to get that water to drain out of there with the slopes we've got. So that's kind of the list of items that need to be completed. As far as the water line on the industrial park, Tony, is that what the question was?
And the pre-development work that we've done recently on the layout.
Oh, okay, yeah, we submitted a set of plans to the clerk's office showing how that water line would work, starting from the South Industrial Park Road, going up a new road that's probably gonna be 200 feet to the west of the county road, or Morse Road, into the park, so we don't run it up. So people in the industrial park would have access to newer lots within the industrial park. And then jump across the highway, board underneath the highway, get on the north side of the highway, and then loop it easterly. And thought the best place to cross would be by the Dubin building and the building to the east there. Not sure who the owner is of that thing, but don't recall who it is. And then tie back into Seville, and then pick it up on the north end of Seville and run it another block and put an 8-inch water line. This is all an 8-inch water line on the north side of Pennsylvania Avenue with this phase of the project. So it'll be looped back to the water line on Seville, just north of, kind of where Seville comes around a corner and dead ends in terms of blacktop. That's kind of where our water line would tie into there, and then back up to Pennsylvania. So that's the scope of the work, and like I said, we submitted draft plans to the clerk's office, and I think the next step would be to work on, that money is available at the state through the bonding bill from a couple years ago, so we need to kind of get that process going to, make it available.
Yep.
$2 million in there, so.
It's 1 year. That's 1 year ago.
Excellent. We do have June 22nd, our parade and stuff in town. The road by the park, I haven't been over there in the last week. I don't know if anybody has.
I walk it every night.
How's it looking?
It's,
Terrible?
it depends on how, every rain it changes.
Is it,
Terrible.
that, obviously that's not gonna be paved by then.
No.
Okay. So,
I guess the main question is, can we get through there without disrupting anything, or is it gonna be, what kind of condition it'll be in?
You're talking the road on,
Roberts, where it
East
goes,
side,
crosses
yeah.
over the old highway over to the park
Yeah.
there, all of that. Is it possible to get that into some kind of shape for that weekend, where it's not all,
okay, that's this coming weekend?
no, the 20s, forgive me, I don't know the date.
Yes, it has to, yeah.
Well, then I want Rye
Next weekend.
I mean,
Not this
it's-
coming weekend, the next
It's
weekend.
drivable,
Yeah.
it's drivable, you guys, it's not
Yeah.
like these
As long as we
fools are
can
gonna
get
fall
the
apart
folks
going over
through
it.
with all the-
So you're gonna.
I don't really think
before you
that
do
it's necessary, but
Because that's
it's not like you can't drive on it.
Right.
And
And
then
that's,
it'll slow everybody down too, so
yeah, at
that's
the
what
rec
you
board
want.
meeting, all we basically said is we just need to be able to get through it. If
We
it's
can get
blocked
through
off
it.
and unusable, we just need to reroute, but that's what their question was, if we need to reroute it or not.
You're gonna do that one.
As long as it's drivable.
It's drivable, it's
Yeah.
it is, it's,
Alright.
yeah.
Okay, we're good then.
It's fine.
Alright. Council have anything else for John?
First.
Staff?
I-
Anything to add?
This might be for you, John. It was something that, the steps here at City Hall. Have we done any plans on that, or did we have money for that at one time to do replacement of our steps out here? Was it ever?
We looked for CDBG funds 1 year for it. I think that's all I think we may have had a quote from a contractor to do it. But that might have been a few years ago.
Is it something that we probably would like to maybe relook into? Because these steps are terrible shape.
Yeah, I think that would be a eligible project. I mean, it's
And being that you're the engineer, I thought, I'm glad you're here,
it is.
so.
I know there was a contract, I don't know who it was,
I-
kinda looked at it and
Stu, they did, didn't they? I mean, yeah, it's been a couple of years, but I think we need to relook at it,
the whole step, the whole
the
thing.
whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it kinda got hold of because I think people were talking about maybe a new building happening. Well, that's not gonna happen, so the steps really need to get fixed out here.
Okay, well,
Mr. Jeffries?
Councilor Keely?
Yeah.
We received $100,000 in midsummer, later summer last year for that.
That's right.
When I went and solicited some masonry contractors, I got one solid bid and one not so solid bid. And regardless, that work would not have been able to been done last year. But then the other question, the other variable here is whether or not we have to go through any National Register of Historic Places protocol because of the building, whether the steps can be not considered part of the building or has to be considered part of the building. And then there's also some restorative work to the columns, to the facade, etc. And it would probably be best if we were able to do this repair work without National Register criteria 100%, that has not been answered yet. But we do have the 100,000 in the pocket for that work.
That's always been an issue with repairs to our building. Being it's a historic place, has to be restored as to.
John, you and I will meet on that as well.
yeah, I'll dig up some of those little notes and plans we had on
Okay.
what was done. I don't know if I remember seeing the quotes, but
Yeah, just take a look at them again, they're worthy, they're worthy of some attention. Yep.
All right. Anything further for John? No? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
We appreciate your work.
I'd like to also call now on Fire Chief Stuart Lehman.
Mr. Chief, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sorry I don't get here more often, 2 little kids and stuff running around quite a bit.
I understand.
Not a whole lot, we got something on the agenda for radios. We've had 12 calls for the year for us. 6 of them were general fire alarm calls, and then we had a couple vehicle fires, power pole call, lift assist, so. Not too busy, but that's good.
That is good.
Other than that, we had meeting last month, so.
Awesome. New truck doing good?
That's what we're gonna get a radio put in, so.
Awesome. You plan on bringing that out to the park for the event?
Yeah, we'll have that.
Excellent. All right.
I can't think of anything else.
Okay. Well, send our appreciation to everybody, please.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. I guess the Finance Manager Thronson, would you like to make any report or not?
No, I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Okay, so then I guess I would say, I have a few items, we've already talked about a couple of them. One, again, the rain being the primary cause of our continued massaging of a construction schedule. Then the summer help amount that we'll take up later in the meeting as well. Some further information regarding the South Industrial Park Buhl Business Block, that would have to do with the frontage road that we propose and plan to go parallel to Highway 169 for business exposure. The east side of that road would dump into Morris Road, which is the extension of Pennsylvania Avenue to the south. We've been talking about extending the road to the west to match up with the Forest Street by the shortstop. In order to do that, we will need to have an arrangement with ODC to have an easement through their property for that road corridor. What I'm here to say on that is that ODC is excited about the opportunity for that to happen and have indicated being more than willing to work with us on securing that access rights when we need so.
Excellent.
I will continue to meet with the county in the next 6 weeks regarding their plans and their work for 169 corridor for next year. And that would include this, what we're talking about, the extension of the frontage road over to Forest Street. Also, maybe the arrangement for some pre-planning of an interchange at Pennsylvania Avenue that would accommodate a potential new CSA, County State Aid Highway Road, up the east side of town, connecting 169 to Highway 125. We have set that for mid-July, we just don't have the particular date set yet. That'll be coming up also. Okay?
Excellent.
Then I have an update on some broadband activities. You might see some orange pipe laying around town in big coils. That is Paul Bunyan Communication coming through and beginning their broadband, their fiber optic installation.
They're working tonight,
Okay.
yeah.
You'll see that for probably the next month or so. Right?
Did we find land for them?
Appears that they found some private land, which, if I'm reading things right, might be on the northeast corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and Wanlis, on former school property. Also, that I have an update, we have a CEDA, Community Economic Development Associates grant to look into childcare facilities. And I'd like to report that we will be receiving from CEDA a first impressions report, possibly by next meeting. But in the meantime, kind of exciting, we may possibly be partnering with an existing Buhl entity. And if that continues the way that we have been going so far, then in the next 6 months or less, we'd like to probably open it up to the council to consider community input on what would, be a full-time childcare facility in the city. Since we began this, we know of at least 2, if not more, childcare facilities that have stopped operation. And the vast majority of these are in private homes, and they service usually 12 or fewer youth, and sometimes it's 6 or fewer. But anyway, the point is that the need continues to grow, and we have some pretty encouraging conversations going on right now. That, again, within the next several months, maybe consideration to open it up for some more community input.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. And that is all that I have there.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Lots of information. Wonderful. Moving on. Citizens Forum.
We have no one signed up this evening, Mayor Carter.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes, regular city council meeting, May 21st, 2024. We have claims, payroll number 11 in the amount of $15,391.92. Payroll number 5 in the amount of $2,350. Accounts payable number 1 in the amount of $23,748.67. Accounts payable 2 in the amount of $83,783.82. For a total of $125,274.41. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? With nothing further, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved.
Mayor Carter?
Yes, sir.
My apologies. Who moved and seconded that?
Denise moved and
I second.
Mike seconded.
Thank you.
You all caught up, sir?
Yes.
Excellent. Moving on to business. Item A. Consider approval or approving fiscal year 2023 municipal financial audit. Sterling Company, the city's independent auditor, has completed their audit of the financial statements of the city of Buhl for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. Bonnie, lovely Bonnie, is here with us in attendance and will present the findings of this audit period and answer any questions that may arise. Council has a copy of their report. Do we need a motion prior to Bonnie's presentation?
Not prior to the presentation.
Okay, all right. Well, if you would, Bonnie, the floor is yours.
I'll let Tony's gonna help me tonight. I did bring a PowerPoint presentation. I thought it might be easier as we're going through the 66-page report to kind of highlight a few things on the PowerPoint.
Can you see Denise? My head's not in your way?
Yeah, you're good. I can
Okay.
see right through you.
And for anybody that's interested, there are copies available of these slides afterwards here. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Bonnie. I'm one of the partners with Sterling Company that conducted the audit for the city of Buhl for the year ending 2023. It's kind of hard to condense several months of work and 66 pages into a report, into a brief presentation, but I've pulled together some highlights. And feel free at any particular time during the presentation, if you have a question, ask it. I might refer and say, we'll talk about it in a minute, or we can address it at that particular time. So, Tony, if you would go to the next slide. So I just think in terms, I always like to start with a table of contents because it is such a large report. This audit report is comprised of 6 different areas. There's an independent auditor's report, obviously that comes from our firm. There's a management discussion and analysis section. There's the basic financial statements, which include both a government-wide perspective and a fund-based perspective. And we're going to touch on highlights on both of those areas. There's notes to the financial statement. Then there's a section called Required Supplemental Information, where it gives information on the City of Orr's OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, and the net pension liability, or NPL. So those are required supplemental information, and we'll touch on those. There's some additional supplemental information on 51 through 62. That is all the detailed individual funds, the combining funds. That's probably where we're going to spend most of our time this evening. And then the last section is the Government Auditing Standards reports, which are required and include findings. Next. So the first is the Independent Auditor's Report, which is pages 1 through 3. In that audit report, it talks about what management's responsibility is, what the auditor's responsibility is, but I'm pleased to present that in our opinion, the City of Buhl received an unmodified or a clean audit report. So what that means is, in our opinion, the financial statements are materially stated in all respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Any questions so far? This one here. Okay. So the next slide is management's discussion and analysis. That's pages 4 through 15. It's an unaudited part of the report, and it's management's opportunity to put in narrative form what's happened in the City of Buhl. It can give financial highlights, budget highlights, capital asset activity, debt activity, and generally it goes through in a narrative form what has occurred in the financial aspect of it. So I'm going to spend the next couple slides talking about the government-wide perspective. Some of you, I think most of you were here last year, and we talk about the government-wide perspective is a bird's eye, high-level view of what's happened in the City of Buhl. It's on the full accrual basis. So from the audit report, we're bringing in your total assets, your infrastructure, your building, your streets, your water and sewer lines. We're bringing in your total debt that you have, and we're combining that and putting them on a full accrual basis. And it's presented in two large buckets, the governmental bucket and a business type bucket. The business type bucket is going to be things like your water, sewer, garbage and electric that are meant to run like businesses based on user fees. And then the remaining will be in the governmental activities bucket. And it also includes your component unit beta. Next slide. So this has a lot of information on it, and you can see I've referenced, you can find it on page 16 through 19. The point on this one, what I wanted to make in the next couple slides, is that those are the buckets you'll see, the governmental activities and the business type activities. Total assets between those two areas, total liabilities, and net position. Now you'll notice that the governmental activities had an increase of 3.2 million, and the business type had a decrease of about 2.9 million. And some may say, well, what happened? That is primarily, well, exclusively, due to the closing and the final of that large infrastructure fund that you had, 607, that was split between water and sewer and street. So the street portion that gets allocated was about 3 million. So it was that transfer from that over into the street portion. So that accounted for that difference. Any questions on that? We are going to touch on a slide later on regarding those transfers too. Next, you can go to the next. So I put in here a pie chart. Again, we're still on this government-wide perspective for the City of Buhl as a whole. You had total assets and deferred outflows of over $20 million. And that's as of December 31st of 2023. You can see your cash and investments, the blue portion, made up a little over at 5.7 million, or about 28%. 28% of your total assets are in cash and investments. And the City of Buhl has most of that in checking, savings, and CDs, somewhat liquid. You can see the gray portion the majority of the assets of Buhl, to the tune of over 13 million, 69%, is in your capital assets. That's your building, your roads, your water and sewer lines, and all your infrastructure. You have a small portion that is with receivables that are coming in, and then the 1% is a deferred outflow in accordance with your OPEB and net pension liabilities. So on the next slide, so on one hand, we had 20 million of assets. What did the city of Buhl, again on this government-wide, full accrual basis, had a little over 6 million in total liabilities. Of that 6 million, the gray portion of that pie chart shows that the majority of that, 79%, makes up to your bonds and your notes, your geo revenue bonds that you've issued in the last couple of years for those water and sewer projects. The yellow portion has your OPEB liability, which we'll talk in a future slide with that. Then there's the net pension liability, which is the lighter blue. And then your other current liabilities are things like your trade accounts payable, the short term, what's going to be due in the next year for your debt service payments. All of that is included in that $397,000. So I thought it might be helpful to look at the city as a whole. The previous slide showed what you had in assets of 20 million. This shows what you have in debt onto the thing, or onto the total. So it gives you a perspective of where Buhl sits financially as a whole on the full accrual. Any questions on the government-wide perspective? It's a pretty high-level review.
Well, thank you for the visuals with that too.
Sometimes it's helpful to look
It is,
and get it
yeah.
into perspective on where it's coming from. So now the next slide, we're going to actually go into now the fund-based presentation. The fund-based presentation are what you're most used to dealing with on a day-to-day operations. The next slides are all based on what we call the modified accrual basis, which means that for under governmental accounting, it's a shorter term economic presentation. We're talking about things that are going to occur in the next year, or things that are for instance, capital outlay. If you purchase a vehicle, that's expensed off in the year of purchase. That is what happens when we talk about modified accrual. I think one of the slides that we talk about every year, and it was probably one of the biggest takeaways every year from when I do this presentation, is what happens in your general fund. So your general fund for 2023, and you'll find this on page 20 in the audit report, increased by a total of $54,527 for the year. What that did was leave your fund balance at a little over 1.6 million for the entire year. But that 1.6 million is not all available for operations. We peel off 182,000, which was restricted. Part of that is the conversation you had prior to this presentation. 100,000 of that 182 includes the IRRB money for City Hall. There was some 47,000 in public safety dollars that was received, and recreation. So those are even though you received those monies in 2023, they're carved off and restricted to those specific expenditures. Then we have a level called committed. And what committed is that the councils, prior councils, have committed funds and said, we're going to set these aside for, there's dollars for the fire department, for recreation, employer replacement. Those were set aside specifically by council action. The only way they can be spent is by council action to uncommit them or to spend them. So there really hasn't been any change in that, other than the employee replacement is set into a specific savings account that is generating some interest. Which then leaves your unassigned of 1.4. The unassigned is what's available for future operations, and I have the note on the bottom that generally the city of Buhl has a minimum fund balance of 5 months of operations that you want to keep. in your general fund. At the end of 2023, you had about 19 months. Last year, you had about 17 or 18 months back in 2022. And when I was looking at the trend analysis, you were about 20 months from the previous year. So you've got some unassigned fund balance in your general fund. Any questions on that? If you go to the next slide, we're still going to talk a minute on the general fund. Now this will give your total revenues for 2023 were $994,660. This did not include transfers in or other financing sources. And you can see what I've done is a graph based on where most of the dollars came in for your general fund. And you can see the largest one is the one kind of in the center there for $643,000. That's from your intergovernmental aid. So primarily it's your LGA aids, taconite dollars that came in, the public safety, you get some fire aid. Those type of things are what's in that column. And then you can see the second largest is your property taxes. The property taxes, I didn't put the percentage on this one, but 28% of your total general fund was from their property taxes, and 65% comes from other governmental aids. Any questions on that? Okay. So now this gives the general fund expenditures. So we saw where you got your money from in the general fund. Where did you spend it? This will show the general categories that are presented in the audit report. And you can see the largest is on streets. Spent $318,000 on streets. That's for snow plowing, street repairs, maintenance. The general government was the second one. That's going to include your mayor and council, the administration, legal costs. It's going to include elections. Those type of things are in your general government, and upkeep of public buildings is in that one. Then you'll have public safety, which is the next one, which is your police and fire and your building inspection. And then the other categories corresponding. Other might be a question, that's your cemetery.
I have a question. Under the general government, does that include our city employees, public works?
The public works would be under streets and, right. So it's, the categories are, this is really in accordance with the state auditor's office has a recommended chart of accounts that follow.
Okay.
And so these guidance, the categories that are here are following that guidance. And
Okay.
so anything with the street allocation of payroll and costs would go into that street department.
Okay. Again, thank you for the visuals.
Okay.
It really puts things in perspective versus
Going
on
through
paper.
66 pages of a
Yeah.
report to get it. So the next slide, we're still talking the general fund again. And in all of these slides, I have referenced the page number in the audit report. So you can always go back and find those numbers and put it into perspective in where they are in the report. Now this will show budget to actual for your general fund. You're required in the financial reports to show a budget to actual for your general fund. You're not required for the other funds. That's why only the general fund is reported. So it'll show in blue is the budget. So originally the city had budgeted $825,495 in revenues and other financing sources. Other financing sources are things like transfers in, sale of assets, those type of things. And you had budgeted expenditures of $853,000. So when the budget was done, it would look like, hey, we have a general fund deficit originally budgeted of $28.5. And you know, generally people will say, well, we have to have a balanced budget, we have to have a balanced budget. Remember our discussion before when you had your general fund unassigned fund balance was at 19 months. So you do have a little bit of room like that. And so when a budget is prepared, and sometimes cuts are being made, adjustments are done, there's a discussion where you're going to take from our unassigned balances. But you can see what actually happened is in orange. And that will show that you actually took in over $1 million in your general fund, and you expended $995. And so you actually had a net positive change of 83,000. So one of the things that we'll talk about and later in the management letter that I have is this idea that Buhl had a lot of things going on in 2023. A lot of projects going on, funding sources coming in, new grants coming in onto the thing. And so one of the recommendations that we do is, would recommend is quarterly looking at those things. And if need be, you adjust your budget to according. So right now it looks like, hey, we overexpended our budget. But the reason why you did that is because some additional funding sources came in. So I wanted to have that visual there to say, you know, really looking at, sometimes people will hone in, and for instance, one of your footnote disclosures requires disclosure of any of your general fund. If you go over your budget, it's considered you've gone over it. But it doesn't state at that point. That's why your MD&A and things like that are important to say, hey, we went over budget because we had additional funding sources coming in. Well, you're allowed under GASB 54 and accounting standards, you know, the budget is a working document. It's not chiseled in stone. And so really looking at that and saying periodically coming, you know, administration would come to the council and say, we'd like to adjust our budget. You know, and the follow-up question would be, okay, if you want to increase your expenditures, then where are the revenue sources coming from? And so ideally, and then in the financial report, we actually present the original budget and the final adopted budget. So your citizens can get an idea of, hey, things changed from what we originally thought. But I think this visually shows that in this case, it changed to the positive. Okay? The next one is fine, yeah. So we're leaving the general fund now, and we're gonna just spend just a few minutes just highlighting some of the other funds the city of Buhl has. You have a special revenue fund, and a special revenue means exactly that. There's a special revenue source that's coming in, so from the financial end of it, it needs to be tracked specifically with the activities for that. And this one's a special revenue fund, your library, because you levy specifically for the library. And you can see the levy total revenues for 2023 were $79,106. The majority of that came from your levy that you do, of $71,977. There's some charges that come in, you know, people don't return their books on time, or there's copy charges. There was some interest earned. And then other of $59.50 is you have some generous community members that give to the library and help support it. So some of that is included into that category. So overall, you took in revenues of $79,000 and expended $75,000. So there was a net increase for the year of $3,555. Any questions on the library?
The charges include like if they charge for making copies and stuff.
Right, correct.
It's not all overdue books.
It's not all over
We're not that bad in Buhl.
It is anything
Okay.
that there's a charge for, you know, so, right. And that is the only special revenue fund in the city of Buhl, because that's the revenue source is specifically coming from the levy for that, so. The next slide is debt service. Now, Buhl has one debt service fund, even though you have a few bond issues. The one debt service was originally an allocation that was from your 2021 A series that was done back in 2021. That was for a total of $1,195,000, but was split. Part was for street at that time, and the original amount on the street, that's the balance, the 845 is what's left in it as of December 31st. The original was 880,000, and then the remaining 315,000 went over to water. So for this debt service for 2023, what occurred here was a little bit unusual in the fact that typically the city has levied for those dollars in the past, but for 2023, the levy was specifically put into your 401 fund, your administrative fund, and then transferred into the debt service for $31,947. What happened was 2023 was the first year that you had a principal payment due on this bond. In the past, it was just interest. And then now in 2023, you had the first principal, which was 35,000. So that did create a temporary shortfall in that fund. You know, it will be looked at. I did not look to see what the levy was certified, if it was done like that in 2024, or if that's still, you know, what was budgeted for 2024 as far as coming out of that debt service fund. So it is a temporary borrowing. In other words, what happened is obviously you made your payments, it was due, but the cash wasn't in that fund yet, and so it temporarily had to borrow, in essence, from Fund 401 to cover the cash flow. It doesn't mean that that's a permanent transfer, it just means as of December 31st, you had the payment out and there was a temporary shortfall. Any questions on that one? Because like I said, 2023 was the first year you had that bond principal debt payment on that one. So that's your debt service fund. And so now if we go to the next slide, the next two slides, we're going to talk about your capital projects funds. The city has 8 capital projects funds, and I remember a few years ago, we were having, you know, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, we had a lot of capital projects. Capital projects funds are designed to be exactly that. When you start a construction project, that's for the streets or that you would create a capital projects funds for it. As the project goes, there's funding sources coming, the expenditures are going out of there. When it's all done, you may then have some debt service. Once it's done, it might get transferred over to debt service. Or in this case, what Buhl has typically done is done special assessments for the difference. So these funds will remain open through the period of time until the construction is either done or you receive those final special assessments. We're gonna just run through a few of them here. The capital admin, or your 401 fund, that's the one I've spoke in the past with the council that typically is not a true capital projects fund. It's where the city has typically put your mining effects dollars. You've levied specifically for those dollars that go into there to help cover whether it's debt service or anything else. But that one does have a net position at the end of the year of $662,832, which is committed, which means it's just council has committed and set it aside for whatever you determine you're gonna do. There was an increase for the year of $118,000, which just meant the mining dollars and the levy exceeded what you'd actually approved for transfers out. The citywide, that is a temporary one-time, the council a few meetings ago had approved the establishment on that one as we were working through the audit process. We're gonna touch base on that in a future slide, but that is the city's, the street portion of that citywide project that you had. It was kept in what we call Fund 607. That was including street, water, and sewer. It's the allocable portion of the street for that project. So that was just created to accept that transfer, and then it gets added to your general fixed asset account group, but it's really not a sustaining, it's not a continuing capital projects fund, unless some of the new projects that you're talking about, that you were just talking about prior to this, some of that may end up that if it's truly just a street portion. East Woodbridge, I have a few other comments here. East Woodbridge is still open. It's collecting special assessments. It collected $572. There's about $4,737 left to collect on East Woodbridge. It just has assessments only, and I think 2023 was the first year on that, so you typically have 10-year assessments. Damien Addition, that one is really the only fund that is really construction-based yet, still has active construction into it. And I just heard when the engineer was up, there was still some activity now in 2024. That, as of December 31st of 2023, it did have a deficit of $21,128. The total revenues for 2023 was $117,793 from the IRRB. Now that's just the recognized revenues. You actually received a total grant for $151,000, but we don't record that revenue until the money's expended. And then you also had a $10,054 transfer from 401 that was approved. Total expenditures were $124. So again, there's a temporary deficit of $121,000. or excuse me, 21,000.
21.
21,128, sorry. There's a deficit, a temporary. Any questions on that one? That's a 2-year, that had some activity back in 2022 and again in 2023. So that's the fund of the capital projects fund. That one still has active construction in it. The other ones are pretty much collecting assessments. The next slide, the last 4 that you have, Sharon and France Streets were final. Sharon Street had a final transfer, it was done, you did your final collection. Interesting enough, when I've been tracking it from collections, I think you collected everything but $3. So that one pretty much is done. France Street also had a final and done in transfer. So those dollars for Sharon and France were dollars left over in those funds. Sometimes that happens. When you have a capital construction fund and you're doing assessments, it's based on estimates. Sometimes you have, construction costs coming in under budget, sometimes it's over, sometimes people pay, sometimes they don't. So those are some final dollars that were left in those funds. The city traditionally has kept those as committed funds and rolled those into that 401 fund, and traditionally has kept that for use then for future capital projects. So South Memorial, that one again, it has a temporary deficit because again, sometimes costs come in more than what you anticipated, the assessments. So that'll be a fund eventually. A lot of times we'll recommend not officially closing it or doing any transfer to take care of that deficit until the final assessment is collected, and then do it, and then most likely it would come from 401. Just to give you an idea for South Memorial, there, as of December 31st, there was about $2,119 left to be collected on those special assessments. I think you were in year 8, so you have about a year or 2 left of that one, and then that one should be done. And then Whiteside and Woodbridge, again, that one is a fairly new one. That does have a net position, positive net position of $62,811. Collected $19,000 in special assessments. Last year too, when that one was assessed back in 2022, there was significant collections on that as people kind of paid up, didn't necessarily wanted assessments. But there's still $124,000, almost $125,000 that'll be collected over the next 10 years. Any questions on those capital projects funds? So it is the city tracks each and every one of those assessments. When it gets certified over to the county and it comes back, it's tracked, it's allocated back to those funds. So we know at that point what's the final collections and where does it come out for those funds. Any questions on those? And we're going to go on to the proprietary funds or the enterprise funds. The city has 6 enterprise funds. For the most part, you have 4 active operating funds: the water, sewer, refuse, and electric. Ambulance and infrastructure are generally, and we'll touch bases on those. Ambulance, if you go to the next slide, we'll actually go to that one right away. Ambulance is generally inactive, well, it is inactive. It used to be an enterprise fund in the city, which meant that you were operating it, that the rates covered the fees. Once that was sold, and the city decided that you were no longer going to run that, that fund is still open. So it has a net position of $107,107. The only activity for 2023 was it earned $72 in allocated interest because it's got some funds sitting there. So it would be up to the city at some point to look at your agreements, to look at what the intent is for that ambulance fund to determine the final disposition of those dollars. They are city funds. There's no restriction to those. So it is up to the city to decide the best use of those funds. I think a lot of times it was kind of put on hold until you could kind of see where things were going to shake out and if you're going to have it back onto things. And it's totally up to the city at that point what the plan would be with that. But it is sitting specifically in the ambulance fund. The next slide. What I tried to do again for your water, sewer, refuse, and electric is put it in a tabular form. You can find these on pages 25 through 28. But I really want to bring your attention down to the 4th line, operating income. Operating income, do you see how that shows a positive in all 4 of those? I commend the city of Buhl. That doesn't always happen because in a lot of communities we deal with, they're having a hard time covering things with your depreciation. So you look the second 2 lines up, you'll see what depreciation is in each of those funds. Depreciation went up significantly, obviously in the water and sewer the last couple of years because those lines were put in place and that depreciation occurs. I was at last year's meeting at this point and your engineer had worked with it and they knew what the depreciation or estimates would be. You had the rate study going on. But the only one I want to bring a point to is under the water. So you'll see the operating income, it's all positive, which is a good thing. You're covering your operational costs and your depreciation. Water is the one unique issue because it took on some additional debt, significant debt, with the 3 million, we'll talk in a minute here, 3.1 million in that large infrastructure project that you did. And the sewer fund took on about 600,000. That was just how the funding sources came in. So the water took on more debt than the alcohol sewer did. And that was not a decision that the city made. It was a decision between how the funding sources came down. So because of that, you'll see your non-operating income expenses are showing 94,000 deficit. So you do end up, and I should have added another line that kind of totaled it for your net transfers. But that's the one that the water is going to show us $55,000, loss after you charge out interest, okay? So that might be something to look at as you look forward and looking at what's going on between your different utility funds. And the rate structure is just to look, does that, is there some tweaking onto that? Again, the ideal situation is you cover depreciation and interest. A lot of communities don't cover depreciation or aren't able to. So if you pull that out of the equation, you're not quite as it's not quite as a dire a situation. But you can see the sewer, even with the operating income, and then we have the expense, interest expense of $17,224 because there was a $600,000 sewer debt that was taken on. That still is going to be positive, 21,000 minus the 17, that's still positive. And then the refuse and electric, they're not carrying any debt, so they're having, and what's showing up there is interest earnings. So there were some net transfers. Again, those transfers are the biggest one under the sewer and the water. We'll talk on the next slide where those come from, is the net transfers that came from that infrastructure project, that large 607 project that you had that was closed out. Remember, we had 3 million that went over to the street. This is the net effect, and I have a slide on that, of what the assets less the related debt that went into those funds. So you can see water, because of assets less the debt, as a less net transfer than sewer. And that gave you then the final changes in the net position. Any questions on that one? So good news is, for the most part, you're covering your operating income, depreciation, but there's still in the waterfront with those additional costs that are coming from depreciation and the debt service costs for those loans may need to be looked at. The next slide is kind of this 607. That's that fund that the city of Buhl has had for the last 3 years. That was your large infrastructure project. It was made up of so many funding sources, so I tried to put together a recap. Total construction costs, and I tracked that from the beginning of the project. So I've got a spreadsheet on what was engineering, what was, all those costs. Came to $7,982,697. What were the different funding sources? You can see through loans, the water loan, that $315,000. Remember a few slides back, we talked about that 2021A issue. Part of it went to the street, part went to water. So that was part the water. There was a sewer, 600,000, and the water of 3.1. Those bottom two loans were what you had refinanced in 2023. Generally, it was through an interim borrowing, and then you did the final USDA loans during 2023. Then you can see the next column over will show all the other funding sources you received for that, what came through from the Minnesota bonding bill, CDBG, IRRB, There was rural development grant, some PFA money, there was some St. Louis County money, small cities grant, and there were some local transfers that the city had done early on from your 401 funds. So that kind of just gave you a perspective of where that whole project was funded through. If you go to the next slide, and this was just a recap, so somebody, when you look at how did that 7.9 on that previous screen, how did it get transfers? What was allocated to water, sewer, and streets based on engineering estimates, based on the actual invoices that were done, those were the splits, net of those related costs. You can see the water fund has 223,000 net versus 1.5 in the sewer, and that's because of the water took on more of the debt. And again, that was due to your funding requirements. It wasn't just an arbitrary decision by the city to say, hey, we're gonna throw the debt here. Those were specific sources that came in. Your bonding bill, your other things that were allowed, it allowed the city to say, hey, then we're gonna use those dollars for sewers, streets, those sort of things. So this just kind of was recapping the net impact of it. The next slide, there's notes on pages 29 through 46. I just highlighted note 5 and note 13. Oftentimes they're the ones that might be most interesting. Note 5 will say what is the debt for the city of Buhl as of the end of December. That's what you owed. Those were the balances. The $845,000 was sitting in your debt service fund. That's that. That'll come out of either levy dollars is typically what you've done, or you did a transfer from your 401. And then you'll see the water, sewer, and the two water debts that are there in the sewer debt. Note 5 in the financial statements will show what does the city of Buhl have to come up with every year just to cover those debt service payments. And roughly it's, some years it's $275,000. Those debt service payments are set to go out till 2063. So they are out there, and there's a table that shows them how they're scheduled. Any questions on that one? The next slide is just the required supplemental. Those are your OPEB and your net pension liabilities. OPEB is your other post-employment benefits. They're actuarially determined. You have an actuary report that does it. Determines that it was $536,631. That's the estimated accrual that the city of Buhl owes, not only for your current retirees, for anticipated expected life, but what would be for your current active employees once they reach retirement. It did have a decrease. Last year's liability was at, meaning 2022, was at $680,000. It dropped to $536,000, only because of actuarial assumption changes, discount rates, that sort of thing. The city does set aside funds. You transfer. You've got an internal service fund that you use for that. You transfer about $19,500 every year to help pay for those continuing costs. And so you do have $125,276 set aside in an internal service fund to help do that. There's no requirement that that gets funded. Most communities do not fund it. It's just a liability that's out there to be aware of. The net pension liability, that also is your proportionate share of PARA. So what happens is PARA is a multiple cost employer plan. You contribute into it under a pay-as-you-go. PARA has an actuarial study that says, hey, Buhl's proportionate share of the total statewide liability is $246,000. So those were required. Those are required to be booked on the governmental fund statement, and also the proportionate share gets booked into your enterprise funds. So you're seeing some of that. It's a small proportion based on your total payroll, but some of that does get recorded in your books. And again, there's RSI that'll show you the trends in the financial statements of what's happening with that one. And then to wrap up, the next slide, there's just a couple to wrap up, is under governmental auditing standards. We're required to disclose. We come in, we're not doing an audit or giving an opinion on internal control, but there are certain things that we're required to disclose. Finding 2023-01 and 2023-02 are very familiar. Those are very standard. Just means there's a lack of segregation of duties. And so we're formally telling the council that you have 1 or 2 people doing your financial reporting, so you may want to put in appropriate oversight. Now, I know at the last council meeting you had talked about, and I think it's a discussion for later tonight, an audit committee. That's a wonderful oversight that can be put into place. It won't alleviate that finding, because it's never a perfect system, but it certainly keeps it to the realm where you're currently at, which just means it's significant enough for us to have a discussion, but it's not material. Okay? The second one is we're required to disclose that we do assist with the financial statement preparation and notes. It's very common. The third one, what is unique, it was kind of a minor one, but generally there's a claims and disbursement statutory verbiage that should be on the back of your checks, that when somebody signs it, it states that it hasn't been paid and it's a valid claim. That generally is just printed on the backs of the check. Apparently when it went to the printers or they had it, for whatever reason, that was dropped off. And so, we just recommended to the city, instead of going out and buying all new check stocks, use that one when it gets done, maybe get a stamp and just put that onto that to comply with it. It's one of those statutes that actually was set to maybe go away and it didn't, because it's archaic. A lot of people aren't writing checks anymore, things are doing. Unfortunately, it still is in statute, so. And then the last, there were 2 other communications. There's the standard governance communication that would have been in your packet. It's required from us as auditors to discuss with the council itself. That would say whether there was any changes in accounting policies or anything like that would be in that letter. There were no significant changes so in other words, you didn't change from the accrual to something else or modified accrual. You continued how you've been doing that before. Then the other communication we have is a management letter. And that's exactly what it is. It's just things, recommendations that when we come through to do an audit, we specifically look and test different things. The budget analysis is just a recommendation. We kind of hit that with that one slide where, setting a committee up that looks at the budget, whether it's quarterly, to kind of say, does the budget need to be amended? Are we spending within our budget? That might be something that the audit committee could do. And then the final one was on claims and disbursements. So what happens under Minnesota statutes is there's a requirement that timesheets should be signed off by the employee and somebody attesting to that. Sometimes that wasn't always done during the year. We went through and I tested all the timesheets. Some of that occurred when there was changeover in staff and you didn't have 2 people in the office. So we're recommending going back and reviewing that provision. I did give Diana a statement of position that's put out there by the state auditor that talks specifically about some recommendations for payroll reporting that you might find helpful. And then the other thing is just a clarification. When we came in, we were doing testing. So what happens is I go through and I'll pull a sample of time reports and I'll look at, okay, was the time report signed off? Was it calculated correctly? Were they paid? There were instances where there wasn't the clear, consistent treatment of when overtime would kick in. So, does overtime occur when hours are worked or when hours are paid? So there should be a clarification on how that's done. So we have a recommendation for that. And I want to thank you. I want to thank the staff for putting up with me for a few months. And I want to thank the council for that. And if there's any questions that you have, either on the audit process or on the report, or should I turn the light back on here?
Sure.
Okay, everybody's eyes on my.
Council, questions?
Yeah, can we turn that off? Oh.
Bonnie, thank you again. It's always a pleasure. The slides were awesome. Having the visuals, some people can't compute this as well as others, so having the visuals was awesome. I appreciate that. We all do.
And there are
Thank you.
copies of those slides here if somebody would like to have those afterwards for notes. So.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Di? No?
What's typically, say 19 months of operations, what do you see normal for cities?
Cities, Recommended is a minimum of 3 to 4 months.
And so Buhl is like 15, 16 months, like, I'll say to the positive.
To the positive, correct. Now, that, that it does allow a little flexibility, so when you set a budget and if things are tighter and you're going to use some funds from, some of those unassigned balances, it allows you a little bit of room to do that. But I do have to caution, because it could go quite quickly. When you look at some of the construction costs and things like to go, so, recommended, you do have a minimum policy of 5 months. That's set in your city of Buhl has that policy established. We recommend no less than 3 to 4, but you were at 19 in that general fund.
Thank you.
Those are good numbers.
Detailed, it's fit.
If we don't already plan on doing it, can we get the slideshow put on the website too? If you don't already have it up there or plan to.
I don't, but I can.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Jeffries, anything
Yeah.
to add?
Thank you, Bonnie, thank you, Finance Manager Thronson. It was a pretty seamless process this year from what I've been used to in the past. So I think that's a good statement I can make, a comfortable statement I can make there.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to our staff. Every time we sit in here and have these discussions, it's always positive, and that's because of staff's work. There's those mosquitoes. All right, excellent. Again, thank you, Bonnie. All right, wonderful presentation. Do we have a motion to accept and approve the independent auditor's report, financial statements, and supplemental information for the fiscal year period ending December 31st, 2023, prepared by Sterling Company Limited?
A motion.
Thank you. Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. With nothing further, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is carried. All right, again, thank you, Bonnie. Moving on, item A1. To consider approving purchase of fire department communications equipment. Stu, just wanna take it?
At one of our meetings, the department guys figured out we should probably put a radio in that new truck since we've got it. That would free up, it's gonna have a dual head system, so one will be in the truck and one's gonna be back by the pumper truck. That way we can free up hand portable radios on scene for guys around, so. That's our thought process for that radio. Otherwise, they have one that just has one head in the truck, but when you're outside working, it's not a good place for it, so.
Yeah.
Mayor Carter?
Yes, sir.
If I can offer, please, the pricing that's been obtained is for $5,667.84. Want to point out that the fire department presently has $8,662 in designated funds available to support this acquisition.
Thank you, sir. I'm not up on that sort of equipment. I mean, this is satisfactory? This will do the job?
This is what, it's like any other radio for fire, police, the same kind of radio.
Okay.
It's only one company that I know is the closest is that DS Communications in Superior.
DSC?
So, yeah, DSC.
Okay.
They install that and everything, Stu?
Actually, we're buying the radio from them, and then there's a guy that works for this city of Chisholm on their ambulance department. He installs radios, so he's gonna install it. So there's like a $250 install fee. I don't know if it's on there or not, but or just part of it.
I don't believe it was.
No, I don't think so.
So that would be additional, but there's still sufficient funds to cover it that are designated.
Absolutely.
So it's one of the newer radios for the new system that they have. We can't go through the county because they're backlogged with their own stuff, so it's the only place I know that we can get it. And it's gonna take 6 to 8 months to get it.
Oh, really? Well,
Well, we got the money.
yep.
We need it.
Do you need a motion approving this amount plus the 250 installation then?
To add that to it.
Yeah, I'd motion we approve the purchase of the new radio for the amount of $5,667.84 and the $250 installation fee.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Awesome. All right, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Radios for the truck. Excellent. Thank you, Stu.
Audit committee. You're on a mosquito.
Yeah, they're terrible. They're indoor now. All right, moving on to item A2, correct?
Yes.
Audit committee, continuing conversation. Where did we leave off with that?
We left off just deciding, how we were gonna split the duties. Is if we were gonna do 6 months each, if we were gonna do it, how we were just gonna split it amongst everybody, or is it just gonna be a couple people? But you guys were looking for ideas, and I was thinking about this and talking to a few people, and I think everyone should do it, but I don't think it should be this week. This week, I think it needs to be split like 6 months, maybe 2 of the people, and then the other year, the other 2. Just because you know your role then, and that way everybody will see what we're doing, and they'll learn the whole process and see why we need this audit committee.
So do you think maybe we should do 1 year then, maybe? Because the terms are
2
4
years.
years and they're alternating
That's what I,
every
6,
2
6,
years,
6,
so-
and 6 is equal 2 years. We're all together for 2 years usually.
Right, but we're all together for the 2 years, we could do 1 year, 2 of us,
But
1 year the other 2, but I just mean just to get the whole year in, and then we can appoint it in
Yeah,
January.
because we would
when
go
get
back
the
then the
rest.
next year for 6 months, because it's really not that, I was just doing it because it's not that fun of a thing to do.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so do 6 months, and then you get a break, and then do another 6 months instead of doing a whole year.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I came up with that. I don't care how we do it, but I do think it needs to be split.
Yeah,
So my recommendation, I'm going to make a motion to, with the audit committee, set up that we do the 6 months, 2 people, and then the following 6 months, the other 2 do it.
Have they formed the audit committee yet? Yes.
Are we making appointments to this committee?
That could be after.
That can be
Yeah,
after.
At the beginning of the year, when,
Well, yeah.
tonight.
well,
And do you want it to start now, or are you gonna wait till
Yeah.
2025?
I guess that's another decision.
We can start now, and we can start now.
yeah, there's 6 months left.
There's
of
6
the
months
year.
left.
There is.
Set the term up first and then appoint the 2 people after
Okay.
my separate
I'll
motion.
second your motion.
Okay, and the motion was?
6
6 months,
months.
2 people.
You testing me now?
No, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure that I understand.
Have 2 people for
Yep.
6 months per.
6 months term,
Term, and then the other 2 counselors the following 6 months.
okay.
To be
I
appointed.
totally agree,
To be appointed at the beginning of the year, or now we're going to appoint.
Right.
I totally agree with all of it. However, if one council member isn't able, for some reason, just a
Actually-
question.
You can
Actually,
just say 2 council members.
Two,
and hopefully-
okay. Terms of 6 months for 2 council members to be appointed by council.
Right.
Okay. Sounds good to me. We have a motion and a second?
We do?
we do.
Was that a question or a statement, sir?
We do.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, anything further? This will formally establish our audit committee.
No, No, the committee has been established.
Oh, okay, sorry, this
This
will
is the
establish
terms of-
the terms of
The audit committee.
and
Two
obviously two
counselors.
counselors, because you can't have a quorum there, okay. Alright, anything further? Those in favor say aye.
Right.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Now, council, do you want to make appointments to said committee?
Well, is it like most, where you make a motion to appoint and we approve, or?
I think it's council's
Or can you?
will to appoint two positions, correct? Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Sorry, mosquito again.
I mean, I'll volunteer.
And I'll volunteer too. I know you're too busy in the summertime, so I'll
Well, if we have
finish the-
volunteers,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Alright, excellent.
Mayor
Yeah,
Carter,
maybe
can I,
that's a better, maybe that's a better way to do it anyways. People volunteer for it,
Yeah, yep.
I suppose it's gonna turn over anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
may I suggest that, being it's June 11th, that this first 6 months take us through December 31st?
Yeah.
Okay, we have two volunteers. Do they have to abstain from that vote?
No,
No? Okay, excellent. So, do we have a motion to appoint Mr.
Motion to
Towner?
appoint myself and Denise to the audit committee
Excellent. Do we have a
For the
second?
remainder of the
for
year.
the remainder of the year. Yeah, thank you.
I'll second.
Second? Excellent. Yeah. Anything further? Those in favor say aye.
Alright,
Those opposed? Motion's carried. We now have an audit committee. We have terms established. And the positions are filled.
Mayor Carter, given the presentation from Bonnie Sterl earlier, I'd just like to say my current thinking is that sometime in the next 2 to 3 months to come back to visit with the council on this concept of a potential quarterly budget review to
Absolutely.
determine whether we stay the course or amend budgets on a quarterly basis. Okay? So
Yes.
it'll probably be coming toward you in August for that consideration.
Excellent, thank you, sir.
Bonnie, can I ask you one question? You know, you went to the payroll part with the 2 signatures on that. Would that be something that the audit committee could look at too and be part of, if you're looking for 2 signatures or not?
Correct, yes, and that's one of the things that the audit committee could do, be assigned the duties of looking at those payroll, giving that second attestation to it, correct? Mhm. That's the idea of what the audit committee is, kind of that additional oversight, and specifically can be assigned whatever duties.
So we're not just looking at the checks that Diana's putting out, we're looking at a little bit more, maybe all the payroll checks to make sure they're signed. I mean, am I pushing this, Diana? I mean.
No, I think that's great.
could you do like a
You know.
guideline for the audit committee? What would be
Time
the
cards,
I could-
invoice,
priority
time
type
cards,
thing?
invoices.
I could certainly provide with some recommended best practices
Give us some
for the
guidance.
audit
Absolutely.
committee to do.
I like that.
And then you
Yeah.
could decide what fits best for the needs that you have. There isn't anything prescribed, but I certainly can pull together best practices and get that over to you to consider for what you want to do.
That would be good, because Randy and I
Excellent.
started here the very first time we did it, and we just kind of went through everything, checked it off, and, okay, was that it?
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be more to doing this.
Absolutely, I can give you some best practices and some recommended, things to consider, whether it's oversight that you want to do within the audit committee, and, how to, what you might want to, how you might want to perform that, and the reasons, so absolutely, I can provide some best practices.
Perfect.
Thank you.
that'd be helpful.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you guys for volunteering for the position. We have an audit committee. Wonderful. Okay, anything further on the audit committee? No? All right, moving on to, sorry, moving on to A3, summer help. As Mr. Jeffries stated, there's discussion of raising wages for employees who serve more than 1 year, correct?
We talked about this in a prior meeting.
As a
and
motivation.
As possibly in the future, because I didn't think we had it in our budget for recreation, I didn't know where we were with it, that we could retain these people coming back every year, and they would already be trained, so you don't have to go through the training process. And I know Trent was in the attendance that night, and he thought it was a really good idea too. So I was actually kind of glad to see this brought up again. And I mean, you know, 1085 is not the most money that these kids, you know, make, but it's still good. And if I could make a recommendation, I would like to see on their second year, they get a 50-cent raise. It's not a lot. In the third year, the same thing, and then the fourth year. And I would like to put a cap on it. I mean, I'm gonna throw another thing in there, a cap, because we don't want forever employees working and keep getting these 50-cent raises. So I was thinking 50 cents a year up to 4 years. That's a motion.
That's nice.
Does that include prior years to this year? So like people have
People
somebody
are
for their
That,
President.
that's up to, I don't know, but that would, I guess that would be up to if they want to do it this year or not.
I mean,
That's
we-
council's decision,
That's-
it's
It's our
not.
decision.
Yeah, we have
We're
a
just
returning
trying to
employee.
establish this now, and then we can talk about it after we get our motion in
I
a
wouldn't,
second.
I wouldn't see why not, it's still the
Oh.
same, it's the same, still the same concept, why
Can
not?
we get a second, and then we can
I'll
talk about
second
it?
it.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry.
Excellent. So, motion and a second for 50 cents a year,
Up to.
starting the second year, up to a total, up to the fourth year?
years, yeah.
Okay.
Who seconded?
So total 5 years of employment,
4.
4 total, first year would be.
Well, the fifth year would be that when you max out.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's what I said.
Oh, I took it as 4, okay.
It's all for discussion.
I don't see what, yeah, sounds good.
Do you guys remember what the, because we used to have like a Parks and Rec supervisor role that got paid a little bit more than the rest of, or beach supervisor, I'm sorry, that got paid a little bit more than the beach attendants generally. I mean, I think the amount you listed probably puts that in the same ballpark.
I do have one question. These funds are coming from the rec.
Well,
Fund.
street workers are also included in this.
The street
so-
workers are also included in this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
So this was the street department budget.
Is it-
That's why I said I didn't know if it was budgeted for this year, so I
Yeah.
don't know if we could do it this year.
Well, that would be my only question, is to run it by the rec board, just to make sure it doesn't flop their budget.
Well, I get, not to speak on behalf of the rec board, but we had a savings this year with the rink not being open in the beginning of
Oh.
the year, so, you know, it's all gonna depend on weather again this year and summer, when winter. So, but I guess I don't know about Public Works, if they're in the same boat.
Is there a reason right now why this has been brought up? Is this something they want to start right now, or, because I know we brought it up back in, like, I think it was April, or even March maybe.
Correct, Counselor Keeley, when we talked about it earlier, or when we put out the notice, we said in the notice wages start at 10.85 per hour, not set at.
Okay.
Does council feel, touching base with the rec board? Or do you feel if council was to approve that now, it wouldn't have a negative impact on them? On
I don't
their
think it does.
financials?
It wouldn't if we started it this year. I mean, or start it next year.
Not counting
Not yet, then just-
experience prior to this year, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, that's why I'm wondering, because we have somebody, at least one person this year that's
3.
returning. Okay, yeah. So,
I mean, that's something you have to talk about if you want to go back and include those kids. I mean, they've been here for how long? I would be hard pressed not to give it to them, but
Because they're meeting the criteria that we're looking for,
Yeah.
the incentive for the.
Exactly, yeah. Yep.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure the rec board would like it to be included, but if we wanted to move forward with it, I don't think it would break the rec board's
Okay.
budget.
Because how much is left in the
Especially
season
like-
anyways? When is their last day of the year?
But again, I don't know if that,
Not sure.
if it's the same for Public Works. I mean, they didn't have seasonal workers in January that were.
We do have somebody with us who has knowledge of it. Sorry to pick on you, Di. If we were to move forward, would that have a big negative impact on streets? As far as wage wages
No.
go? Okay.
When did they go
No,
till?
just a 50-cent, no, it would not have a big negative.
They only
Okay.
can work
Till August.
65 shifts at the most, so
Let's see, like
that's
August
all they
31st.
can, in a year, in
Yeah.
a rolling year, so.
So that's what, 50s? Oh, sorry.
That's a couple shifts.
Not good at math right now.
2 months. Yeah. It'll be 2.
So,
And a shift is up to, even if they come in for 4 hours, that is a shift, and they go home, I mean, that's
Okay.
considered a shift, so.
Mayor Carter?
Yes,
You
sir.
wanted to do a quick calc on it, I think it would be safe to say maximum 7 hours a day for your 65 shifts.
gotcha. I don't wanna do the math right now. I think we're fine. Council? Agree?
I'm in.
Alright. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everybody understands the terms of the motion, correct? Okay?
Was 50 cents enough, or was it too much?
No, I think that's okay.
No, I
That
think
that was
that's
kind of, that was
good.
the number I had in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I remember right, like I said, the beach supervisor, I think, had at least $2 more an hour, so.
And we did have backing from Trent on this one, I know that, because he liked that idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And-
That's a great idea.
Bring
The
me
amount
back.
you'll save in training and the extra
Oh, yeah.
productivity from somebody who knows what they're doing, I think it's worth it.
Just the headaches for Trent. Alright, we have a motion and a second. Everybody understands the motion? Mr. Jeffries?
I do.
Alright.
The motion reads that that returning workers will be compensated at a rate of 50 cents per hour additional per year for up to 4 years maximum.
Diana, has anybody started yet?
Yes.
Can we do it effective, like, July 1st, or
As we speak,
instead of going back?
the first checks to those individuals will be coming out this Friday,
Oh,
so this
we
is
can still do
timing.
it?
This is timely.
We can put it. Does that even have to be stated, or we just put it into play
No,
right now?
it doesn't have to be stated.
Alright, excellent. Alright, we have a motion and a second. It's a great idea. Anything further, council? With nothing more, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Thanks to our summer help too, if they're watching.
They're
Appreciate
saying
it.
thank you.
Well, wish we could do more, but
Maybe one day.
all right. Item B, consider purchasing new riding lawnmower for Public Works Department. The City Public Works Department presently maintains and operates a fleet of 3 riding mowers to service the department and city needs. An additional non-operational unit is also in inventory, serving as a parts machine. The department is in need of obtaining a new similar mower, which is intended to replace a Toro mower placed in service in June of 2011, and a Toro mower placed in service in June of 2014. These existing machines are planned to be placed for auctions, and the proceeds from their sale return to the city general fund. Attached for council is quotes. This item has been budgeted at $12,000 for 2024. And then council, we will need a motion to accept the quote and approve the purchase of the new riding lawnmower for Public Works Department at the cost. Trent is not with us tonight.
No.
Mayor Carter, I'm prepared to stand in for that.
Excellent. Do you have a recommendation from?
Let's
city
get
boys.
motion, please, first.
Oh. How can we motion without that input?
Because we don't know which one we're,
Okay. You've been given, in your packet, 5 different mowers. The first page has 3 different mowers on it. Please do not consider the one on the right-hand column, which is the lowest price one. It is not necessarily heavy-duty enough for our wishes. Of the remaining, the preferred is the last item, the razor for $10,959. That is from Street Department's conversations with ourselves. Please note that in this particular instance, the reduction or the discount is approximately 33% from what was given to us as list price.
Okay.
All right, that is the information we needed. That's a recommendation from Public Works.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. With that, do we have a motion to accept the quotation from Martin's Snowplow and Equipment and approve the purchase of a new riding mower for Public Works Department at a cost of $10,959?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, discussion. As Mr. Jeffries stated, this is a recommendation from our guys.
That's a good deal.
So on this invoice, the price is retail?
The retail price is $15,206. Our price is $10,959.
Cause they like us?
That's how much they mark it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to know people.
That's fantastic.
And plus the sale, the other ones will go towards it too,
That is correct.
right, so.
And I forget if it was mentioned, but currently there's $12,000 allocated in budget for it for this
Yeah.
You
year.
get in touch with them, that's a heck of a price.
Nope,
for that.
excellent. Under budget,
Yep.
getting a good price on it. Excellent. All right, we have a motion and a second. Anything further? All right, with nothing more, those in favor say aye.
Alright,
Those opposed? Motion carried. Getting a new mower. Excellent. They let the new hires run them?
Maybe if they're returning.
Are these zero turns? Cause that takes training.
They are zero turns. Good call.
I don't do them.
Alright, item C, consider closing hall, consider closing hall on June 21st, 2024 for required election training. With 2024 being an election year, St. Louis County has reminded city administrative staff of mandatory required election training which must be attended in order to maintain current election official status with the county and the state of Minnesota. These training sessions are being offered on 3 consecutive Fridays, June 7th in Virginia, June 14th in Duluth, and June 21st in Virginia. These are the only training sessions available to city staff. The administrator attended this training on June 7th. Finance Manager Thronson needs to attend one of the remaining training sessions. Finance Manager Thronson is unavailable for the June 14th session, so will need to attend the June 21st session in Virginia. The administrator is out of the area and unavailable on June 21st, and as such is unable to provide coverage to City Hall on that day. With that being the only opportunity for Finance Manager Thronson to attend, and with the training beginning at 9 a.m. and running until 4 p.m., no coverage at City Hall will be available from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. on June 21st.
8:30.
No coverage at City Hall will be available from 8:30 a.m. until 11 a.m. on June 21st. What day of the week is that?
Friday.
It's a Friday?
That's why it's dark on the weekend.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. Long day at work. Alright,
Yeah,
Let's just make the motion and then
Yep.
we'll talk.
do we have a motion?
I'll second.
Okay, that was quick, thank you. Discussion.
So, because I know a little bit about this, Diana, why do you have to go to training?
The county, I talked to John at the county and he said we need, I'm sorry, I'm trying to see Denise.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you're going. We have to have 2 hours of training every 2 years.
Yeah, but can't you get that, if you have to have that kind of training, that's clerk's training, and that's what he went for already.
Yeah,
So I
I'm
don't
not sure.
understand why you have to go to clerk's training.
As the
You're not-
finance manager?
As the no, she doesn't have to go as the finance manager.
No, I'm not.
The 2 hours of training you can do online, like I will do mine online. Or the training that they offer the staff here. I know there's another training that I know that some are going to, but I just don't understand why Diana has to go to it when you've already gone to it.
If I may, my understanding is that deputy clerks are commonly part of this as well, and I believe Diana has maintained her election official status for at least 10 years or so now.
Correct.
Right, but you
Five
can do
elections.
that online.
Okay, if that's the case, when we conversed, that was not known to us.
I mean, I'd hate to be totally wrong, but we have a clerk and I don't wanna bring Chisholm up, I'm sorry, but we have the election there too, and our clerk went. But our deputy clerk and our clerk, we only had a clerk that went. And we're not sending anybody else, I mean, there's head judge training someplace. But we're not sending anybody else to this additional training that they want to send you to. So I don't understand why you have to go to that. You can't do your 2-hour training on the computer like I would, or if anybody that can attend the training that Tony's going to be doing for his judges, you can also do it on your computer. That will give you your 2 hours training. I mean, Tony, I don't want to step on your feet at all, but I believe that you already went.
Correct, I went last Friday.
I know you did, yeah.
What would happen if Mr. Jeffries wasn't available around the election for some reason?
And Diana did not have the training?
That's my only question. Do they have a backup? I don't know.
She didn't say she wasn't getting the training, she just
Do it
said
online.
do it an alternative.
She can still do the
Still
training
get the same
online.
certification, so to
Yeah.
speak.
We all have to do the training every 2 years to be a certified election judge. And I do mine online at my desk while I'm waiting on customers. So I guess that was just my question, that why did both of you have to go?
Honestly, I just, talked to Jonathan down at the elections down in Duluth, and that's what he said. I'm definitely willing to do an online for 2
Oh,
hours.
yeah,
versus going
absolutely.
there.
Right, I mean, did he say the 2 hours, did he mean the 2 hours online training that we all have to take?
No, because we were talking about these dates. These are the dates that he had given. So, but I will definitely double check with him.
So should we make the motion pending?
Or table
You
it.
can't.
Well,
Can't do
yeah, we don't have time.
Right.
We
And the
can,
only other thing, I'm just gonna bring up, the 21st is also our our garage sales for the town, and City Hall being closed is going to be I think it's important to have City Hall open, because of that reason too. I hate to be in the middle of this, I just don't understand.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
I mean, we did send 2 people, we sent our pro term city clerk to the training because she had to go to it. But we also sent Christie, because she's the one that actually does our elections, so that's why we sent 2. But it wasn't necessary for both of them to go. We even took our head judge, we took him to that training. But again, I mean, if they're telling you you have to go, I can see that, but if they're just saying the 2-hour training, is that the same training that all of us are taking online, or when whoever teaches those videos?
I just know in the past practice, both the clerk and I, like when Ryan was here, both of us went to training. The extra, it wasn't just the 2-hour, it was the clerk and deputy clerk training.
Right.
But like I said, I'm willing to just do the 2 hours online and.
Because, even when it comes to the actual election itself, I mean, we have to step back. You do, I do, we have to, because we're just kind of deputy election clerks, considered even with just that 2-hour training. Because we can't really be an election judge. We can't accept ballots, we can't. So we're just the deputy there. We have election judges to do that. So us as staff, city staff can't do that. So again, I hate to say that we don't want to send you if you have to go. And if they told you you have to go, I mean, we don't really have a choice.
I think we need clarification on it. However, Mr. Carney's comment is very relevant. If Tony wasn't available, then what?
Well, she's still qualified. She would not be disqualified, what she's trying to say, and I too checked into it. What she's trying to say is that she can complete her 2-hour additional training and still be certified online. So that if hypothetically, God forbid, something happened to Tony, that he could not be there, she can still step up to the plate and be the boss, so to speak, in layman's terms. Am I wrong on that?
She can't, I mean, you always have to have a clerk, but do they have to be at the election? I mean, that's,
My comment I was going to make is just an observation. I believe we're talking about an election official here, not a judge or other things, so I'm not clear on the criteria for election official. That may be definitely worth needing to be looked into further.
If I propose a motion that have them check with the county official if it requires the day-long training rather than a 2-hour training, get something, I'm a written person or email, something you can hold in your hand saying it is required, then that Diana would go on June 21st.
because the June 21st one is an 8-hour training, it's not
Yeah.
a 2-hour
Yeah.
training. And so
Oh.
that's right there is a, it's
not
2-hour training that
necessary.
we all do versus they had to do almost an 8-hour training on Friday.
But if they required the 2 from Buhl, then Diana would have to go to that. If it's, no, you don't need that training, then she just do the 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, was Tony updating his training, or was this his very first time? Because she's already been certified.
Melody,
I don't know.
Ms. Staffaroni?
You have to be certified you have to go and get certified every 2 years.
Every
so.
2 years.
It was my first, however,
Okay.
I'd say 85% of the audience was repeat. if
Doesn't
more.
matter, it
Just-
was your first time.
Yeah.
And she's already been through the
Understood.
ropes many, many times, and from what I know, she's been through the ropes, so if she only has to do the 2 hours versus his brand-new training, there's a big difference between brand-new training and
And
update.
the clerk, it doesn't even have to be brand new, the clerks do have to do an 8-hour training. So he did complete his training, so,
Great.
so he has completed what Chisholm or Buhl needs, so.
Yes.
Do we need another one? That's the question.
And that's where we need clarification. That can't be decided here. So as Mr. Carney said, we need a motion. If provided that that is necessary,
Yeah.
Diana will attend. If not, Diana does not have to attend, correct?
She can do that.
And the City Hall won't be closed.
And City Hall won't be
City
closed.
won't.
However, if it is required, City Hall will be closed June 21st from 8:30 a.m. to
Shouldn't be.
11 a.m.
That shouldn't be. City Hall should be open.
And
City Hall
yeah,
should be
I
open.
mean, we talked about this in the past, the city hall should be open
Yep.
unless
You
there's an
already
emergency.
passed approval of that. Somebody
One,
needs to be
if
here.
one has to be gone someplace, the other one has to be here, we talked about that.
We passed that last year. We passed it last year.
Do you have a recommendation?
I mean, I don't know why Tony has to be gone, but I know that that was the recommendation. I don't know why you're not here that day.
I am out of state at other predetermined things I need to be at. And if I was close, I would come in, but I'm going to be 700 miles away.
Already passed that.
Should we table this, check into it, and call a special meeting if we need to discuss possible closings?
You only have a week.
Or we can make a motion to look into this if she has to go, if she doesn't have to.
Probably have to have a special meeting is what I'm thinking.
Well, if it comes to she has to go to this, then we'd have to have a special meeting. If she doesn't have to go to it, we would have to have a special meeting.
Right.
So that-
So,
So technically, right now, this is tabled until we find out, and then we can call a special meeting to make this decision.
That's one way to do it.
All over City Hall being open for 3 hours? I'm just bringing that up.
I think just table the issue and then check with the county and get something in writing from the county as, and then,
To close the.
It's more than being closed for 3 hours. mean,
No,
we
I
do
get it,
have-
I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get
It's
it.
way more than that. So, and then again, we have a citywide coming into town with people, and our city's gonna be closed. It just doesn't look good.
That's over here.
And we've already talked about this being closed.
Ladies, please refrain from rude comments while we're trying to conduct business, please,
I didn't say a word.
please. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mayor, council, I just want everybody to know that prior to this, and Diana, I just want to reiterate with you, I did ask the county for any and all other dates and places for this. And they indicated to me at that time that it was only these 3 dates that we have indicated here, June 7th, 14th, and 21st. And Diana's not available on the 14th. So we'll continue to look, but just wanted you to know that prior to coming here, asked if there were other alternatives as well.
Thank you.
I could make a phone call if you wanna, and find out that answer,
do you mean right now,
like
or?
right now. I mean, I could see if I could get an answer.
Alternatively, we could begin our research on this tomorrow.
Okay.
And if there needs to be a special meeting, it would only be a one-item meeting for
And
10
we'd only need
minutes.
3 counselors to come in, correct?
It only needs the
One item.
quorum for that to happen.
Okay.
And again, this has nothing to extent about Diana going, it has nothing about that at all. It's more about the city hall, the day that it's happening, and we've talked about this in the past. So I have to stick to that conversation.
That's fine. Table it until we have clarification.
I guess who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, so I think appropriately, we would need to have the motion retracted.
I'll retract my motion.
I'll retract my second.
Thank you.
Excellent. And we should have, we can clarify that tomorrow morning, ASAP, correct?
It might be a non-issue.
yeah,
It may be. If Diana can complete a 2-hour online course, then we don't even have to revisit it, correct?
Correct.
They're $11. So,
Excellent. All right. Perfect. That item is tabled.
did we move it to table? We withdrew the other
You were
motion
just retracted, sorry.
We just retracted.
I'll motion to table.
Oh,
I'll second
with
the table.
directing staff to check with the county to get clarification.
Okay. Motion to table, directing staff to check further into it.
Correct.
Sorry, it's not as good a wording.
Yeah,
and call special meeting if necessary.
correct.
Okay. So a motion and a second?
Yeah, second, yep.
All right, anything further? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, moving on. Item D, consider procuring and implementing Camp Life reservation software application for Stubler Beach Campground. The city operates, manages, and maintains a rustic campground adjacent to Stubler Beach, our campground. It's becoming more and more popular in recent years. In the last few years, the city has implemented an in-house reservation system to manage attendance at the campground and ensure campsite availability for all throughout the spring, summer, and autumn. Managing these activities requires noticeable time and effort from city administrative staff. Although the system works well, automated improvements are welcome. In an attempt to streamline these processes and increase efficiencies, staff has researched available software products to computerize campground management and reservations. Camp Life, formerly Campground Automation Systems, has been identified as having a product which staff finds workable and affordable, and suggests this platform be employed to manage activities at Stubler Beach Campground. We've talked about this quite a few times. Do we have a motion to accept and approve the proposal from Camp Life for reservation software to assist in managing the Subler Beach Campground at the standard plan level?
I'll motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Excellent. Discussion.
This is just gonna make the process easier to make reservations and,
And now that we don't have to pay at the box on site option anymore, this will
Yeah.
open up last minute bookings and.
Well, and I've even had, phone calls or text messages when the city hall is closed, hey, we'd like to stay here for the weekend.
so now they'll just go online and
Yep.
they make their own reservation, get charged that fee and,
Yep.
and yes.
Cool.
Yeah, that,
It's a nice program, we work with it.
yeah.
I work
And
with it.
ATVs coming through town in the summer, which is becoming bigger and bigger, and if they want somewhere to stay,
Yep.
excellent. So rates look to be $25 a month? Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, with
My
a
question was,
setup fee of
is,
100?
Oh, sorry, the monthly fee, is that for every month of the year or just the
No.
months that were open?
The months that we are open.
Okay.
Okay, that is collected on top of the rate we have established, is that correct?
The-
No.
Or,
There's a fee of, what is it, $1.25 or? whatever,
$3.50.
$3.50 that will go with their $25 or whatever our rate is.
okay, so,
They'll pay
so
that.
15, so.
we pay
18,
this
50.
and then
Yeah,
they
we
add
paid
their,
25.
their gain off of each rental, okay. And then a setup fee
Mayor,
of
Mayor and
100?
council, if someone uses the system, they would have a $3.50 per reservation attached.
Yep.
If they come into City Hall and do it in person, I would not see that $3.50 would be attached to that stay.
Right. Yeah, I think it says that in here somewhere.
Not subject, right here, reservations made directly by your staff are not subject to $3.50, okay.
You really wanna push them to using the reservation system though. So instead of having them come here, don't make this a ground to them,
standard.
a standard. You can,
Okay.
cause you can direct them to this program.
Excellent. Inexpensive, streamlines, makes available when not available at this time,
And their website looks great, it's user friendly,
awesome.
helped around at Chisholm's campsites and West Two Rivers.
Yeah, I haven't got to check the website.
Yeah, look at it, it's nice. And then they also, I believe, if you're looking at Chisholm, they'll actually go to different areas that have campgrounds. And if you're in this camp,
Oh.
Sure.
they'll show it that you
Nearby.
Buhl has
Okay,
nearby
yeah.
campsites, so.
Excellent. I think it's a great idea. Alright, we have a motion and a second, correct?
We do?
Excellent. You have anything to add, Mr. Jeffries?
I don't.
Okay,
Well, I will. Both Diana and I have independently done a dry run through this. We both agree. And we would look for implementation as soon as we can.
excellent. Diana, you agree?
I do.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a nice thing.
Perfect. Alright, anything further, council? Alright, with nothing more, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's carried. Mr. Jeffries, with that motion, when can we look to see that up and running? Any idea?
Oh, let me
Not to rush, I'm just curious.
possibly, well, I would think that some mapping is something that they would like to have as they set the site up. We
Okay.
certainly have a small enough campground that may not take very long. We know our rates, we know our sideline charges. I'm gonna throw it out there, but there might be an opportunity by July 1.
Excellent. Get it in use this summer. Alright, moving on. Item E, recommendation from BETA. The conveyance of property parcel number 115-0010-00010. If you're not familiar, it's over on Culver
Forest.
and Forest, the corner vacant lot there. North St. Louis County Habitat for Humanity recently completed 2 single-family residential homes on the east side of State Street, north of Jones Avenue, and is presently in the process of developing and constructing 2 additional single-family residential homes on the west side of State Street, north of Jones Avenue. Everybody in town knows down by Billy's Bar there, towards the landing. The new ones will be across from the bank. The city of Buhl was instrumental in contributing to the success of these developments by providing the building sites to Habitat for Humanity to allow this to happen. Habitat additionally had communicated its desire to potentially obtain a property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Forest Street and Culver Avenue. I will skip the property identification number. We already established that. For future development of 1 single-family residential home on this parcel, staff met with Habitat for Humanity and inquired whether this parcel could adequately house any additional structures given its size. As a result, Habitat indicated that this parcel could adequately provide for 2 single-family residential homes. This parcel is currently held by BETA, the Buhl Economic Development Authority. This item was on the agenda for discussion at the May 30th BETA meeting, with consideration for a recommendation from BETA to City Council regarding potential conveyance of this parcel to Habitat. BETA is recommending to the City Council that this parcel not be conveyed to Habitat for Humanity at this time, in order to revisit the best potential use of this parcel. More information regarding the suitability of the site may become available upon the issuance of an updated City of Buhl comprehensive plan, which is tentatively anticipated by the end of 2025. This is informational only, just a recommendation from BETA on that parcel. Anything further, or to add to that, Mr. Jeffries?
At this time, no.
No?
However, I anticipate contact from North St. Louis County Habitat for Humanity in the not-too-distant future regarding the status of this. Not at this time.
I guess I'd like to
We'll find
come
out.
back to this before the end of
In the morning.
2025.
What's that?
I'd like to come back to this before the end of 2025 if we can. I mean, I guess, and I apologize, during the BETA meeting, I misunderstood when it was said during the meeting that based on zoning, you wouldn't be able to fit 2 single-family residents. But it sounds to me like we can fit 2. And I know that was part of the reason why it was recommended not to move forward with this. So I guess if we can bring this up maybe during one of our
Workshop?
working sessions, yes.
That would definitely be a place to discuss it. But informational only. The lot is held by BETA. Their recommendations at this time are to not convey it. And that's it. Alright, anything further? Moving on. Item F. Update on EMS operations in the city of Buhl from Essentia Health. Mr. Jeffries, would you like to take this?
Thank you, Mayor Carter. The city enjoys a relationship with Essentia Health EMS, which I'll refer to as Essentia EMS, for providing BLS, basic life support, EMS services to the city through an existing ambulance services agreement. This ambulance services agreement currently in effect provides for an expiration date of April 21, 2027. Simultaneously and concurrently, the city has also leased certain premises to Essentia EMS to conduct their ambulance service, namely the property located at 201 Forest Street, the old Buhl Fire Hall Ambulance Hall. This lease agreement also provides for an expiration date of April 21, 2027. Staff has previously met, I've previously met with representatives of Essentia EMS, and per the lease agreement, completed a financial review to determine subsequent rent payments due after the 2-year mark. Currently, the rent is $1 per year. Staff does not recommend any changes or alterations to the lease agreement, including a modification of the rent of the premises at this time. Essentia EMS has recently provided an update to the city regarding their operations. It should be noted that Essentia EMS has reported that things have been going well for their Buhl operation, including improvements to their staffing levels and needs, which has helped with staffing a second ambulance and the overall success of the operation at this location. Staff further recommends that the city and Essentia EMS continue a regular dialogue in order to keep the city informed on Essentia EMS potential further needs with regard to the Buhl EMS operations. Now I'll take a quick tack sideways. Ambulance, EMS services they model their business on several items, including 911 response, including in-city non-911 response, but they make the best part of their revenue model in transfers of patients. So that seems to fluctuate up and down depending upon season, and I've seen that this year as well. Also, in the industry, there's two different levels of professional, one being a paramedic and one being an EMT. The EMT being the lower level of criteria and qualification. EMT populations are dwindling, and those who go into an EMT are not staying as long in the profession as they used to. The paramedic level has not been as affected by either the population in the industry or the length of time that they stay in the position. Typically, paramedics kind of make a career out of it. So, one of Essentia's biggest moving pieces is how to staff and at what level it's coming from. So sometimes they get a little bit behind the eight ball where they have staffing concerns. If that's the case, they have a difficult time maintaining the operation. So them reporting very recently to us that their staffing has been improving, I think is very good news to us and also to Essentia. That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All good news. All right, anything further? Oh, all right, moving on. Item G. Exciting summary of 2024 election candidacy filing. 2024 is an election year, including federal, state, county, and local elections. Locally, 2 city council seats and 1 mayoral seat are up for election in Buhl and will be on the ballot. The municipal general election shall be held Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. The primary election will be held on Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. A local municipal primary election is not required to be conducted at this time. The filing period for candidacy for a Buhl municipal office, both councillor and mayor, closed on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. And candidates had until Thursday, June 6th, 2024 to withdraw their candidacy. There were 6 affidavits of candidacy submitted for local Buhl elections, 2 for the position of mayor and 4 for the position of city councillor. The following individuals have filed for candidacy for local office. For mayor of City of Buhl, Mr. Jim Matthews and Mrs. Sherry Swanson. Thank you. City councillor, we have 4 individuals: Renee Loeffler, Tanya Erickson, Susan Trunk, and Linda Paulford. Excellent. Wonderful. That's good to see. As a citizen of Buhl, thank you to these individuals for the willingness to serve this community. It's sometimes it's a thankless job, but I I personally enjoy it.
Are the meetings normally this long?
No, apologies, we're almost
My
there.
bedtime.
We're almost there, mine too.
I'm sorry.
I just wanna show some appreciation for these individuals.
No, thank you.
Filing for candidacy is not a small feat. Holding the positions, you shoulder a lot of weight, and for them to step up for our community and be willing to serve, I appreciate it. So thank you to these individuals. Anything further? All right, moving on. Oh, other business. Do we have any other business?
We do not.
Excellent. Councilors' comments? The floor is yours.
I spent some time on the phone with Norm the other day, and we were just talking about things at Central Sanitary Sewer District, and he said again, the I&I numbers were up again because of that rain last week, but we do have smoke testing coming Monday, right?
Counselor Keeley, we do not. We
Oh,
have,
they changed?
well, we changed it because of the vast amount of moisture. Smoke testing will be much more effective in a drier soil situation.
Never.
So, anyway, we initially were thinking about the necessity with Minnesota Rural Water to push it off a week or two. However, given the saturation of the soil, to get the biggest bang for it, we might be better off going till August and hoping for a mini drought.
So are we gonna set it up with them so that we actually have a date at least? So we're not last minute, or they don't care, they'll come at any time?
We will be formalizing a date. I just talked to them, I guess it was Friday latest.
Okay. Because he said the numbers were up and
Yes,
we gotta find out why,
yes.
Today too.
Yep.
so. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen? Nothing?
Just a reminder, Independence Day celebrations next Saturday. Parade will
That's
start
gonna be a
at,
good time.
start at 2. Oh, God.
I got
It starts at 3, line up at 2.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And then we'll end up at the park eventually, and
Yeah. I heard a rumor, there may be some politicians at the dunk tank. Yeah. That should be a good time. Just to
you can stand
incentivize.
there and hand out the balls for people to throw.
You're not getting up there this year, Denise? Come on.
I will admit it's less than enjoyable, but it's for the kids.
It is a bit unnerving.
It's for the
It'll be
kids.
fun to watch you guys.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I probably will too.
It's gonna be fun.
Oh, boy.
Anything else?
Be there or be square.
Yeah, excellent. For mayor's comments, just want to repeat or touch back on the individuals who filed for office to serve our community. Like I said, as a citizen, I appreciate the heck out of it. It's not always a good job. It's not always easy. Everybody has their own opinions. To be able to do it and shoulder it, thank you. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
1 second.
Thank you. Anything further? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting closed, 8:48.